Good morning, afternoon, or evening, everyone. My name is Jeremy Walsh, and I am the Director of Support, Training, and Documentation for BNI Connect. I'd like to welcome everybody to the webinar today. Today's webinar is on the visitor process in BNI Connect, starting with the inviting of visitors to pre-registering visitors for a chapter meeting, and then monitoring the visitors and following up with visitors after the meeting. All of these processes can be done and assisted through using the functions in BNI Connect. And I'm going to show you all about that today. Before we get started with today's content, just some background information and some housekeeping tips. First of all, this is a live webinar, so that means that as we're going through all of the content today, if you have any questions about anything, please do feel free to ask those questions as we're going along. The best way to ask questions in the webinar forum is to type your question in to the questions panel. That's done right through this GoToWebinar software. I'll see that pop up on my screen and I can answer those questions right away. If it's about what we're talking about, if it's something completely unrelated, we can answer all those questions at the end. We have about a half hour's worth of content, of direct content that we're going to be going over. That being said, I am always happy to stay on these webinars until everybody's questions are answered. So don't be shy, ask your questions. We will be recording this webinar. It is being recorded now, and it will be made available in a couple of different places. The first place is on the support site. Now you can get to the support site by clicking on this little question mark in the upper right-hand corner, right under Regional Website and Options. There's a question mark. Click on that. That will take you over to the support site. On the support site, you'll see our list of upcoming webinars. And you will also see, if you scroll down just a little bit, a section called Chapter Training and Documentation. Here you'll find a whole bunch of help articles, including all of the things that we're going to be talking about today. But you'll also see the recorded webinars. Here we have them organized by month. So if you wanted to, for example, review the July webinars, you could click on that article and review any of the webinars for that month, including a copy of this particular content, Visitors from Registration to Follow-Up. There's a recording there available for you. Today's will be posted probably in a couple of weeks after we're done with this month's round of webinars. You'll also find them posted on our YouTube channel. If you go to youtube.com/BNI Connect Global, this is our YouTube channel. We have a ton of content up here, not just the recorded webinars, but also a whole series of educational moments, short 3 to 5 minute videos that you can use as a BNI Connect based educational moment in your chapter or just to learn more about certain functions. There's also special messages from Dr. Meisner, as well as some pre-release demos and other types of videos up here on the YouTube channel. Again, that's youtube.com/BNI Connect Global. All right, but let's get started with today's content, which is going to be on the visitor process in BNI Connect. Now, I did write a manual for this. If anybody is interested in the full manual, please send me an email, support@bniconnect.com, support@bniconnect.com, and I will be happy to send you this 53-page manual on the visitor process in BNI Connect. But here's an overview of the process. We're going to be talking about the 3 different stages of working with visitors in BNI Connect. The first stage, which happens before the meeting, is inviting visitors, and I'm going to show you how you can invite visitors using BNI Connect. The second stage is pre-registering visitors for a chapter meeting, and that has a lot of benefits to it as well, pre-registering a visitor. That can be done in 2 ways, either through your chapter or regional website. It can also be done from the inside of BNI Connect when you're logged into the members only portion. And then finally, after the meeting, there's the follow-up process where we track our visitors, all the visitors that might have been pre-registered and have attended the meeting. We can also track any visitors that did not pre-register. And we can also send follow-up emails and even invite visitors back to your chapter using reports and the email tool in BNI Connect. So I'm going to show you all of those things today. So let's start out with the first part of the process, and that is before a chapter meeting, we would like to invite a visitor to come and visit our chapter. So let's take a look at how that works in BNI Connect. So I'm going to switch over to the BNI Connect screen. Now, let's say that we'd like to invite somebody to our chapter. Now, you might be at, I don't know, maybe out at a networking event or something like that, and you run into somebody and say, hey, why don't you come and visit my chapter? Now, that's great, except that that person probably doesn't have all the information they need in order to come to the chapter right away. They're not going to have the address. They're not going to have the chapter name or any details about BNI. So we need a way to easily give them all that information so that they can come to the chapter meeting. Now, rather than go back and type out a big, long email yourself, we have an easy way to do that in BNI Connect. We're going to find this under the operations. Now, a lot of people come to me and say, I don't know where to find anything in BNI Connect. Here's a little hint, and this is how I remember it. Up along the top, you'll see the different menu items here, network operations, reports. Some people will also see tools and admin. Now, when it comes to where to find things, network is going to be all the social media components, the connections, the groups, testimonials, the place where you're going to work with the social media side of BNI Connect. Operations is where you do stuff. If you need to input something into BNI Connect, if you need to manage something, if you're, let's say, a vice president, you need to input a POMS report, that's where you would do any data input or use certain functions. Reports are going to be output. So if you're looking to find information or get data from BNI Connect, that's when you would go to reports. So since we want to kind of do something, we want to create a visitor invitation, we want to send something out, we're going to go to that operations menu. So I'm going to go to operations, chapter, and I just got a note from Francis saying that the voice is fading in and out. Let me see if I can adjust the microphone a little bit, and hopefully that will be a little bit better for you. Thank you, Francis. All right, so if I want to send out an email invitation, I'm going to go to Create Email. Once I click on Create Email, you notice there's three things in here: email my chapter, email a visitor invitation, and email chapter visitors. By the way, if you ever need to email your chapter, before BNI Connect, we'd always have to kind of make our own email distribution lists, or we'd go back to the last email from our chapter and kind of hit reply all, but never would go to the right people because some people had already left the chapter and new people had joined since then. If you need a current email list of all of your chapter members, just click on Email My Chapter. You can then copy and paste all of the email addresses, and using your own email program, whether that's Outlook or Gmail or Yahoo or whatever it might be, you just copy and paste the addresses into the BCC line or the CC line in order to email your chapter. But anyway, what we want to do right now is email a visitor invitation. So we do that by clicking on Email Visitor Invitation. Now, all we need to do is fill out a couple of little pieces of information. We need to put in their name, their company, their email address, and a personal message. What it's going to do is take this information and insert it into a template that we have created on the back end and send this person a very professional-looking invitation to go and visit your chapter. So let's say I'm going to be inviting, I don't know, Scott Ernst to the chapter. Thanks for being on the call today, Scott. Company name, BNI Mid-America, and email address. Now, I'm going to put my own email address in here so that you guys can see what this email looks like when it comes into my email in a second. So my email here, and then a personal message. You want to put something that is going to, again, personalize this email so it's coming from you. So maybe I'll put in, it was great meeting you at the networking event. I would love to introduce you to my referral partners. Now again, I'm going to click send. It's going to scoop up this information. It's going to put it into a special template that we've created on the back end and immediately email it out to that email address. Now that should come into my email in a couple of seconds, at which point I will then show it to you. All right, and here it is. It did come in right away. Here's that email, and it says it has a nice BNI graphic here at the top. The subject line is invitation. My BNI chapter wants to meet you. The invitation graphic, and then it customizes this email with Dear Scott. Puts in my personal message here as the first paragraph of the email. It was great meeting you at the networking event. I would love to introduce you to my referral partners. And then it goes into the email itself. It lets them know that you're cordially invited to that meeting. It puts in the name of the chapter. This happens to be the Burr chapter in Antarctica. We meet at the Cool Breeze Cafe located at 11 Snowball Court in the banquet room on the Outer Limits. We meet on Wednesdays at 5:30 p.m. And then it goes into just a little bit of information about BNI. It lets them know it's a business and professional networking organization. It also lets them know that they're looking for somebody in their profession. It asks them to please RSVP with you so that you can reserve a place for them. Now, if they reply to this email, this will go back to you. The reply to address on the email is set to whatever your email address is in BNI Connect. It then signs the email from you and from your company name. Now, a couple of things to keep in mind with this visitor invitation. We're not tracking this information at all in BNI Connect, so we're not, creating marketing lists or anything with any of this information. Because of that, there's also no reports or anything that go along with this. This is just a way to get a quick, customized, yet branded BNI chapter invitation out. Now, for director consultants, I know we have a couple of executive directors and director consultants on the call with us today. You can send out an invitation for any of the chapters that you manage. It will insert the information from whatever chapter is chosen from the drop-down list. So again, for director consultants, you can use this invitation to invite to any of the chapters that you have access to. All right, so let's take a look at the second part of this process. So we've sent out a visitor invitation. Now, if a visitor then comes back and says, you know what, yes, I would like to come and visit that chapter. Now what we can do is we can register them for an upcoming meeting. Now, registering visitors for an upcoming meeting has a lot of great benefits. The first of which is that it sets an expectation for actually coming to the meeting. So a lot of times when we invite somebody in passing, it's just a, hey, you want to come to the chapter meeting? Sure, no problem. I'll come and visit the chapter. And then all of a sudden, 6:30 comes around and they hit the snooze button a couple too many times. And because nobody was really expecting them to come to the meeting, maybe they don't show up to the meeting. When we register them for the meeting, though, it does help to set these expectations that somebody wants them at the chapter meeting. The first thing it does is once they're registered, it sends them a confirmation email saying you are registered to visit this chapter meeting. So now they know that the chapter is expecting them. It will also send them a reminder 2 days before the chapter meeting. So if you meet on Thursdays, on Tuesday, that visitor will get a reminder saying, by the way, you registered to visit this chapter meeting. Please show up at the chapter meeting, bring plenty of business cards. Oh, and here's the address as well. It also notifies a whole bunch of people that somebody is visiting. So it notifies the president, the vice president, the secretary treasurer, so the leadership team. Any visitor hosts for the chapter are all notified that a visitor will be attending. And finally, the director consultant for the chapter is notified that somebody will be attending that chapter meeting. So let's take a look. How do we register a visitor for an upcoming meeting? All right, so going back here, under the operations menu, we have Manage Visitor. Now, once we're in Manage Visitor, if we want to register somebody for an upcoming meeting, we would click on Register a Prospective Visitor. Now, the Add a Visitor would be for tracking visitors that didn't pre-register. But instead, we're going to register somebody for an upcoming meeting. So we click on this link, and then all we really need to do is fill out this form. So pick the chapter they're going to be visiting. We can choose their profession and specialty. Let's say this is somebody that's doing photography, and they're a portrait photographer. what date will they be visiting? Now you can choose any date in the future. You can't choose any past dates, and it will only allow you to choose dates that the chapter meets on. So let's say they're going to be coming to visit on the 24th. And again, this is our friend Scott from BNI Mid-America. Now, if you have any of the address information, you can fill that out now. Phone number is mandatory, as well as the email address. Now, once I click Submit, this person will now be registered for the upcoming meeting. That person will now get an email registration notice saying thank you for registering. Again, the chapter leadership team and the visitor hosts, and as a matter of fact, here is my notification. So I just got this notification saying I'm confirmed to visit the BNI Burr chapter on the 24th at 5:30. Please be there for 90 minutes. The address is listed, the time, the day, and they're ready to go. And again, they will get that reminder 2 days before. Now, I did mention that a visitor could also register themselves for an upcoming meeting, and we are finding more and more people are doing this. Now, the place to register as a visitor to a meeting is through the regional or the country website. So up in Antarctica, we do have a website called antarcticreferrals.com. This is our test area. Now, let's say that I'm somebody that either maybe heard about BNI or I'm just researching BNI, and I go and I'm going to look for a chapter that I'd like to visit, so I'm going to find the chapters there, say, hey, you know what, this Burr chapter, they meet on Wednesday, that's a good time for me, so let me check it out. I can take a look at the other members that are in this chapter, maybe look at some profiles. You know, I can see that Harvey Keitel and Alfred Newman's in this chapter. Looks like a place I want to go visit. So I would click on Visit this chapter, or perhaps I want to check out their chapter website. If I click on Visit this chapter, it will then have a form that's pretty much the same as the form that we filled out on the inside of BNI Connect as a member. The only difference here is that they can choose who invited them. They type in the person's name. And they also do need to put in a CAPTCHA message so we don't have a bunch of spam bots just registering random people for our chapter meetings. Now, I did mention they can also do that from the chapter website. So up here on the chapter website, this is a default plain vanilla chapter website. There is a link up at the top called Visit Chapter, and this allows you to register here as well. Of course, if you customize your chapter website, you can add a button for that or do anything you'd like to make that a little bit more prominent. The third place a visitor could register is on a country website. So here in the United States, we have a website for all BNI members in the United States called bniamerica.com. And the same thing applies here, as I could find a chapter. Now, let's say I heard about the Wakefield chapter, which is my chapter here in Rhode Island. And let's say I wanted to visit BNI Wakefield. Again, I can click on Visit this chapter and fill out the same form. So we're making every opportunity available for people to register to visit a chapter. We do have a question from Karen. Karen says, is the host or chapter penalized if the visitor doesn't show up, even if we pre-register them? So there's pre-registered visitors, and then there's visitors that have actually shown up. Now, by penalized, I assume you mean in the PALMS report, for example, with the conversion ratio and things like that. So that part of it, the credit for the visitors, only happens after they have attended the chapter meeting. So having somebody pre-registered doesn't affect any statistics or anything else. Does that help, Karen? All right, so pre-registering visitors does also give us the opportunity to see who's coming to our chapter meetings ahead of time. Now, for that, what I want to do is I want to go look at the reports. So if I go to Reports Chapter, all the way at the bottom of the list, there's 2 reports down here. The first one towards the bottom here is Visitor Registration Report. This is essentially who is registered to come to the next meeting. So if I click on this, by default, it's going to show me the next 1 week of registered visitors, but I can change this if I want to. Let's say I want to find out how many visitors we have coming through the end of the month, for example. Or maybe if you have a Visitor's Day coming up next month and you're tracking that, you can change this date to whatever you'd like. So if I click Go, I'll see here we have Scott Ernst. He is registered for this upcoming meeting on the 24th. So with this information here, I can then do some pretty cool things. If I want to, I can pre-follow up with the visitors. That would be a great thing to do. Give Scott a call and say, hey, Scott, I noticed you registered for a chapter meeting. I noticed that you're a photographer. We have an event planner in our chapter that I would love to introduce you to. I can't wait to see you next week. Other things that you can do with this information is you can maybe create some name badges for the people that are showing up. You can use this as a sign-in sheet by printing this out. Instead of having them fill all their information out, they can just verify the information and you can check off when they've shown up. All right, so that is the pre-registration process for visitors. Now what happens is the meeting happens and they've now either attended the meeting or maybe they didn't attend the meeting. But what we want to do is do the follow-up portion after the meeting is ended. So what we need to do is we need to figure out how many of our visitors that pre-registered actually attended the meeting. We can then add any visitors that did not attend the meeting. By adding these visitors and marking them as attended, they'll also get a thank you for visiting the chapter email. And finally, if we want to, we can go back and review our visitors, update our visitor database, and even follow up with visitors to maybe invite them back again. Or if you're having a special event at one point, maybe inviting them to your special event. So let's take a look at the visitor management portion. So again, I need to do some input and some management. So I'm going to go back to Operations. And under Manage Visitor, if you are a visitor host or you're a vice president or a secretary treasurer, if you're the person in your chapter in charge of managing visitors, what you want to do is you want to figure out if any of your registered visitors came to the meeting. So to do that, I'm going to go to Manage Registered Visitors. I can then do a search for a specific date range if I want to, or I can just click Go and see all of our registered visitors. Now, let's say that somebody calls, one of the kind of unforeseen bonuses that we're finding is that a lot of visitors now, if they can't make the meeting, are calling to reschedule ahead of time. With them being pre-registered, we can change their registration for the meeting. So let's say that Fred Sprocket here, he missed the meeting a couple of months ago, but he called and said, listen, I'd really like to come next week instead. So what you can do is you can edit this record. I can then go in and change their visit date. So let's say they'd now like to come to next week's meeting on the 24th. I can then change that date and click Submit. Now he will get a new email confirming him for that particular visit. After the meeting, you do want to make sure that you are you're marking the people as attended the meeting. So let's say we had our chapter meeting this week and our good friend Afstav here did show up to the meeting. So I'm going to go in, I'm going to click Edit on this record. And rather than having to retype all the information out, when a visitor attended, all we need to do is check off this box that says Visitor Attended. Now, for those of you managing this, you also have the choice at this point of whether or not to give credit in the POMS report to the person that invited them. Now, some reasons that you may want to exclude this from the POMS report would be, let's say it's their second visit, or maybe they were a substitute, but you still wanted to track that they were there. maybe it was another BNI member from another chapter. All those cases, you probably want to exclude them from the POMs. One thing about including it in the POMs is that the person does get credit for it as inviting a visitor, but it also does affect your conversion ratio when it comes to statistics like the chapter traffic lights, for example. So you can then choose the person that will be getting the credit in the POMs report. Let's say Ricky Martin was the one that invited them. You can update or change any of the information, verify their email address, and also you can choose whether or not to send them the follow-up email. The follow-up email is thanking them for coming to visit the chapter. Now I'm going to update this. Email address, I'm going to check off to please send that follow-up email and click Submit. Now this person will be sent over to the POMs report. For the vice president or whoever is doing the POMs entry, they will have an opportunity to then say, yes, I accept this credit into the POMs report. And this visitor has now been sent an email thanking them for coming to that chapter meeting. Now, sometimes you may want to, and here's my thank you for visiting. Thank you for recently visiting. Let them know what date they visited on, etc., etc. One reason that you may want to not send that email, if you happen to be very far behind perhaps on catching up with your visitor entry, and let's say they visited a month ago or 6 weeks ago, it may look pretty funny getting a thank you for visiting email a month after they visited. So you may want to suppress the email in those cases. Now, let's say that your visitor did not pre-register. Well, if they're not in this list, what you probably want to do is now you click the Add a Visitor. This will add a visitor to your visitor database. It's pretty much the same exact form. You can just fill that out, and now that visitor will be added. Now, one of the benefits, besides the immediate follow-up email, one of the added benefits of adding visitors into BNI Connect is now you can start to track your visitors. So not only can they then be converted to members, which makes whoever is entering the application's job a lot easier, but you can also do reporting on this. So if I want to check out my visitors, I can go back to the reports. So for this, I'm going to go back to reports and then chapter. And let's say I want to take a look at people that have visited my chapter. Now for that, I'm going to go to the chapter visitor report. So I just need to scroll down a little bit here, and here's the chapter visitor report. I can choose any date range I'd like to. Let's say I'd like to find out all of the visitors that have visited my chapter so far this year, and click Go. And I can now see all of our visitors for this year. One thing to keep in mind is there is a note on this report that says there is further information available when exporting this report. The additional information that you will get is their full address details. So if I do click Export here, when I open up this report, what you'll see is that it does include all of the address information as well. This information is useful if you are, let's say that you're using send out cards or something like that, or some external follow-up system, and you need to import that information into the other system. You can do that by exporting this and then importing this into your other system. But this is also just good for if you need to do a follow-up, or let's say that you're hosting an after-hours event for your chapter, or a networking event, and you'd like to invite all of the visitors that have come recently to your chapter. You can do that by getting their information from this report. You can also, let's say you're having a visitors day and you want to reach out to previous visitors that didn't join the chapter. That is another reason to go back to this report. Now, if you are just going to be sending out, let's say, a blast email to all of your visitors to, again, invite them back to your chapter or to an event, now you can do that if you remember under Operations Chapter, where we have the Create Email. We do also have an Email Chapter Visitors option. And similarly, I can, let's say, go back to January 1st through today and click Next, and I will have an a list of all of the chapter visitors handy that I can put into whatever program I'd like to email with. All right, again, there's some additional tools at a regional level that you can use for tracking visitors and communicating with visitors that I'm not going to get into today. However, it is all in this 53-page manual. Everything that we covered today and some additional things, again, are in this manual. If you'd like a copy of the manual, please do send me an email, support@bniconnect.com. Again, that's support@bniconnect.com, and I will be happy to send you a copy of this PDF file. We are at the bottom of the hour, so what I'd like to do is if anybody does need to leave right away, I want to be respectful of your time, but I would also like to open it up to any questions that you might have. Again, I am happy to stay on the call until every single question is answered, so please do start typing your questions in now. While you're thinking of any questions, just a reminder, this is being recorded. It will be made available on the YouTube channel. youtube.com/BNI Connect Global. Again, that's youtube.com/BNI Connect Global. It will also be on the support site, which you can get to, again, by clicking on this question mark. And again, clicking on the question mark will bring you to the support site. As I said, everything there is documented, so if you need to, let's say you want to do an educational moment on how to email a visitor invitation, go to the chapter training. And if you click on any of the articles, you can see there's a step-by-step tutorial. Some of them have videos as well as instructions on exactly how to perform that operation. Now, a good referral for me is if you got some good information out of today's webinar, please do recommend these webinars to your regions, to your members, to your fellow chapter members. I would absolutely love to see more people on the webinars. Our very next webinar is going to be tomorrow. Tomorrow we're going to be going over the chapter goals for leadership teams. So we do have a goal planning function in BNI Connect for chapters. We're going to be talking about that tomorrow at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. All right, let's see. We do have a couple of questions here. Let's see. Francis says, no questions. Great information. Thank you. You're very welcome, Francis. And Kathleen says, so I've emailed 2 people invitations that were done Tuesday for our Thursday meeting. How do I determine if they pre-registered? So to determine if they pre-registered, what you want to do is, again, go to that report. So go to Reports Chapter. Reports chapter, scroll down and look at the visitor registration report. That will let you know if they have pre-registered for the meeting. And if for some reason you don't have access to that report, permission to reports and functions and everything else, those are controlled on a regional level, so please do talk to your director consultant or your executive director and say, hey, I saw this report, I'd really like to have access to it, and they can help you out with that. And follow-up question from Kathleen, should I register them if they are not there? Yes, I would say that if they are confirmed to visit, so they said, yes, I would like to visit, yes, I would absolutely register them. What I would recommend against is registering anybody that has not necessarily said yes yet. So does that help, Kathleen? So Karen has a question. She says, how mobile is BNI Connect? My problem is I'm out of the office at least 80% of the time. Most updating will have to be by my mobile phone. So BNI Connect was originally written for a full screen system. That being said, the functionality works on a mobile device. For example, I have a Droid and Android phone. I do most of my referrals and online slips and things like that through my mobile phone. As the director of support, I also do occasionally jump in and have to do some more complex tasks. That being said, it is not designed for the small screen. We are in the process of prototyping a mobile platform for BNI Connect. That is in the very, very early alpha stages. It will be going through some prototyping and some analysis over the course of the next couple of months. After that, we'll have hopefully be closer to a mobile solution, whether that's an app or just mobilization of the site. We're not 100% sure yet, but it is in the works. Does that help, Karen? All right, and you are welcome, Kathleen. That was the last question I had listed. Does anybody else have any additional questions? All right, if there's no additional questions, again, just a reminder, it is being recorded. I would also love it if you would give us a like on Facebook. We do have a Facebook dedicated to BNI Connect. If you go to facebook.com/BNI Connect Global, we do all sorts of, like we did a webinar reminder and announcements and tips and tricks and all sorts of things. So please go ahead and give us a like, and you will receive the notifications about upcoming events. All right, so excellent. No other questions? Again, thank you so much for being here today, especially very busy executive directors. I know you guys are in the middle of a lot of leadership team training at this time of year, so thank you for being here. And I look forward to seeing you all on a future webinar. Have a great week, everybody, and happy connecting.